Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. One in 8 couples in the United States face infertility. That is a huge number. And it's not all female factor or male factor. There's so many different reasons for infertility. About a third of couples are due to female factor, which means endometriosis, tubal disease, pelvic inflammatory disease, or something like that. Another third are due to male factor, like low sperm count or poor morphology or things like that. And another third or so are unexplained infertility. And in episode 2, I shared a little bit about my infertility journey, but I'll tell you the thing that really stands out about infertility, other than, of course, the heartbreak and just how hard it is to go through. One of the things that really stands out is how medicalized family building becomes when you're dealing with infertility. You start to feel like a lab rat or a science experiment, just being poked and prodded and go to this blood test and come for this ultrasound and do this test and get these results. It's just, it takes the magic out of family building completely. And while that's hard, what's even harder is feeling like you're at the mercy of these test results and medicine and science. My husband is a total go-getter. I wouldn't call him type A necessarily. He doesn't quite fit that profile, but he's really quiet and but he's got that intensity inside. It just doesn't come out as intensely as my intensity does, I guess, sometimes. But there's this fierceness in him so that when he's determined to do something, he goes all the way and he does it. So when we decided that we were going to go through with fertility treatment, he started, we're female factor, so there's a lot of health problems on my end, but he got super involved and started doing all this research about what can he do to help increase our chances of getting pregnant, the first cycle. And I'll never forget this. One day, I found him on the sofa with his laptop in front of him talking to himself. And he never talks to himself. He's very quiet. He just doesn't really talk a lot in general. So he was talking to himself. I was like, what is going on? What happened to him? So I asked him, what are you doing? And his answer was beans. And I was like, what are you talking about? Beans? What do you mean? And he's like, I need to eat beans. But, oh wait, I can't eat beans at home. So, okay, I gotta make sure I eat beans at lunch at work. And kale. Do you know how to cook kale? And I'm cutting all the red meat out in my entire diet. And I was like, you don't even eat red meat. What are you doing? What are you talking about? And it took him a second to kind of get out of his head to fill me in that he had done a ton of research on foods he needs to eat that would help him increase our chances of getting pregnant quickly. And he really just wanted to be a part of it. So he wanted to do his part. And this was kind of his way of doing his part in our fertility journey. Now, while infertility isn't caused by poor nutrition or nutritional deficiencies necessarily, your and your husband's diet does play a significant role in your ability to conceive. It's a huge, huge factor that we need to talk more about, which is why I'm so excited to have today's guest on our podcast. I actually met her through Instagram, which is super cool. I'm starting to get the hang of Instagram, I think, slowly but surely. And I was super excited to find her. And I am very, very excited to introduce you to her. Lindsay Dam is a nutritional therapy practitioner in the Palm Desert area who empowers women and couples to restore their fertility naturally with diet, lifestyle, and consciousness. She's a miscarriage survivor, a life enthusiast, spirit junkie, and a mother to 10-month-old Owen. She can be found hiking in the San Jacinto Mountains, heading to the beach, or whipping up a recipe barefoot in the kitchen with her little helper. I'm so excited to have you here, Lindsay. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so grateful. So thank you.
Yeah, so I want to just have our listeners know a little bit about you, because when I first talked to you, I was just blown away by your story. And so I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you to helping couples with their fertility journey, especially through nutrition.
Absolutely. So I got started on this path with working with women and couples on their fertility struggles because of my own history. And I think that's how a lot of people find themselves on their trajectory and their life purpose. And so for me, I'd actually been in the health and wellness field at the time for about 10 years when I had my miscarriage. And I'd always been really interested in nutrition. I'd already made a lot of changes and had transformed my body in a lot of ways by identifying foods I was sensitive to and cutting those out of my diet and having all sorts of profound health benefits as a result. And so anyways, about 5 years ago, had a miscarriage, and it was so traumatizing. And I mean, the emotional upset and the physical upset. And I had no idea until I had a miscarriage what women go through. And it's a terrible thing to experience. And when I was in the hospital, hopefully you've never had a miscarriage, but for women that are listening, you know what I'm talking about. You're in the hospital and you're losing a lot of blood, and the doctors and nurses, they were just so kind of nonchalant about it, and they were empathetic and they were wonderful, but they were like, yeah, this is normal. It happens all the time. And I was like, how on earth could this be normal? It never.
That's the last thing you need to hear in that moment,
totally.
Right?
I was like, are you serious? Do you see what I'm going through right here?
Yeah.
So that never sat well with me, and it still doesn't.
No.
And
Well, that must have left you feeling so unsupported and just even worse than you're already feeling physically, just knowing that your medical team just isn't even taking this very seriously.
Yeah. I felt completely unsupported and just like kind of left alone. They were bringing me warm blankets and pain medication, which I really didn't want to take anyways. And, it was basically, I was just sitting there in the hospital room, and they were talking about blood transfusion, and I was like, how could it be so normal for someone to need a blood transfusion from something that's like a normal thing that the body goes through? I was like, there's got to be another answer and explanation. And I just really was not okay with being left like that and just feeling like, oh, this is normal. So
No, that makes me really angry on your behalf. And I know a lot of our listeners have experienced very similar things too, of just like feeling waved off during one of the most devastating times of your life. That is, oh my God, that makes me so angry. That's not how you should be treating patients. But as doctors, this is kind of what they see day in and day out. They forget, many of them forget, I think, the personal side of that experience.
Absolutely. And, I don't put any blame on doctors or anything like that. And as you said, it's basically been like washed over because they see it all the time. So yeah, they do. They're kind of disconnected from, the reality of what every person, goes through on their day-to-day basis. And they've been so excited because they've been wanting to have a baby for so long. And then here it's just, they're losing it, and just all the feelings of what's wrong with my body. Why isn't my body working? And you're telling me it's normal that my body's not working. And, you just go through it like, it's like you're on this hamster wheel of all these negative thoughts and, like what's going on with me? Why doesn't it work for me? Why does it work
Yeah.
for everyone else but not me? Because, I mean, if you have a pregnancy loss, or even if you're just trying so hard to get pregnant, and it just seems like it's like on the forefront of your mind so much, and then you see everyone else around you getting pregnant or being
Oh, that's the
pregnant.
worst, isn't it?
It is. And even for me at the time, my sister was pregnant while I was having my miscarriage.
Oh, I
And
remember you
and
saying this.
yeah, she and I are so close. And so it's like this spectrum of emotions because of course, like I was so thrilled to be an auntie for the first time and so thrilled for my sister because they had been trying for a little while. And at the same time, you have this incredible excitement for the people in your life that are expecting, but then just this incredible sense of sadness and loss.
Yeah. And that really speaks to just how many complex emotions come from your infertility experience, that you can feel joy for somebody else while feeling so much sadness for yourself. And for you, just physically going through it at the same time, there's just so much messiness around it that can be really hard to navigate.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and it's for the body nerd within me. I can kind of disconnect from the emotional part of my body and recognize how incredible it is that we can have all of these things going on at the same time.
Right.
But when you really come back into your body, I mean, it's devastating, and it's unexplainable really how all of these emotions can be going on at the same time and be felt so strongly. So because
Right.
yes, you're thrilled for your loved ones, but then you're mourning this loss within you and trying to physically recover so you can even just go back to work. So
Right, absolutely. So, how did that bring you then back to your original passion of nutrition that you were kind of always headed towards, but kind of life happened and took you a different way? How did you get back to that?
so what I did, that triggered something for me, and just that comment of how this is normal, that absolutely triggered something. And
Mm,
I created the space, the time in my life to go back to school. And at the time, I knew I wanted to do nutritional therapy because I'd been interested in that for a long time. I had no idea at the time that I was going to be learning so much about fertility during this process of going back to school. I just knew I had to do something different, and I was just being catapulted towards something. So I found this program through the Nutritional Therapy Association. I enrolled right away. I like emptied out my savings account because there was one spot left in the class and I knew I had to take it. So I just paid for
It
the
was like the universe
program.
was just waiting for you. Like, come, this is your seat.
Exactly, exactly. And it was the most incredible experience. And so I like 2 months later, I'm in school to become a nutritional therapy practitioner. And I learned so much about the body and the endocrine system from a holistic perspective. And it was
Hmm.
like I had so many answers as to why, or likely reasons why I had my miscarriage. And here's the thing is, before, when I had gotten pregnant and before I had my miscarriage, I was super healthy. Like I was already gluten free. I had already, cut out. I'd been gluten free for like 8 years at that point and was super healthy and fit. And I had just run my first half marathon. And, like I was really healthy in a lot of ways, but I didn't realize there was all these other links to it and missing pieces from my own health,
Yeah.
and things like digestive issues I've been experiencing my whole life. I had no idea that, wow, digestion actually plays a huge role in fertility. And so I just kind of had all these pieces, or discovered all these pieces of the puzzle that I didn't even realize were missing. So I was able to implement those into my own life and really transform my body. so much more than I already had before with my nutrition and lifestyle changes that I'd made before going to school. So it was really learning about preconception preparation and looking at fertility from this whole perspective of, you've got to have this whole foundation in place first. And before you can go ahead and like build up from a foundation, like if you look at a house, if you have a second story house, that house is going to be built on a foundation, right? And a good solid first floor. And this is an analogy I use a lot for my clients is reproduction. That's like the second story of a house. And before reproduction can really take place, you've got to have a solid foundation and first floor. And that's where, all these.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because I think you're right. Because when you're struggling to get pregnant, that's kind of the only thing that you're thinking about is how do I do that? And what can I do to get pregnant right now? And you forget that there's so many layers underneath that need to be addressed first to increase your chances of actually getting pregnant and staying pregnant.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. And I work with them on really building a super solid foundation because we know,
love it.
Yeah, like you can build, a second story. You can pay architects as much money as you want to build a second story on a house. And, I kind of like say, your fertility doctors are a lot like architects and they will build you a beautiful second story of the house. I mean, it's amazing what doctors and modern medicine can do in terms of fertility, but you're in charge of taking the foundation and the
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because you're right. I mean, if you take that analogy and you build this beautiful second story, if the foundation or the first story aren't built properly, the second story is going to fall down.
Exactly.
You're going to have leaks. You're going to have problems. This is really speaking to the Property Brothers fan in me too. Yes. So I'm really appreciating this analogy. But it really makes a lot of sense that you start seeing these problems and instead of putting Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids, you're coming at it from let's just really fix it from the ground up so you have a really good solid foundation, which makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
So for couples who are trying to conceive and kind of are in this space now with maybe they're going through infertility or they're trying and it's taking longer than they expected, what are your top 3 things that you say they need to know about nutrition as it pertains to their fertility?
Well, first of all, for 3 things. So first of all, you've got to get rid of foods that are harming your fertility. And I'll kind of go over the 3 points and then I'll go into a little more detail on that.
Sounds great.
So you've got to get rid of the foods that are harming your fertility. And then you've gotta, get in foods that are going to be helping your fertility. And then when I work with people, I always add in the good before taking out the bad. So, and
that makes a lot of sense because it's really hard to take things out without knowing what else is going to come in. It's really difficult to sustain that change.
So, yeah. And, anytime you make a change, it's really difficult and it can be very frustrating if you don't know what to put in place of that. So for my clients, I always say like, let's add in some of the good and then take things out. So you already feel like things are already being replaced. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And then the third piece of this particular puzzle that we're talking about is you've got to make sure that you're breaking down and absorbing the nutrients that you're putting in. And this is where digestion comes into play. So digestion is the breakdown and absorption of nutrients. And if you don't have that, you could have the best diet in the world, but you're really not going to be getting any of the nutrients that you're putting in. And the reason nutrients are so important is because these are the building blocks. These are the building blocks for your hormones, for every metabolic reaction that goes on in the body, for cell division, everything that needs to take place for your body to function. And then reproduction is going to happen when you have leftovers, when you've got your body flowing smoothly and functioning. Then you're going to be able to have some, like, say, leftover building materials to be able to create a new life. So
you bring up such a good point by saying that. And I want to just reiterate that again, because your body's main goal is to keep you healthy.
Yes.
And it's not going to open the door for creating a new life if your building blocks or your foundation is shaky, because it's not going to be able to sustain that pregnancy, and it knows that.
Yes.
Right? And the same thing happens even during pregnancy, right? Your nutrients, your body's looking out for you. I think it reminds me of when after my son was born, and he was born so early that I wasn't prepared for anything afterwards. And so I remember the lactation consultant saying something about, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to stay calm, because otherwise your milk is going to be affected first. It's not going to just keep producing milk because you know there's a baby, right? And I think that's amazing that it starts even before you start having a child, before you're pregnant, before you even think about being pregnant, your body is going, nope, now is not the right time. We don't have all the pieces in place, so we can't sustain this, so we're not going to do it.
Exactly. They're not supported. It's like, again,
Right.
having that first floor and that foundation for a house, because, you can have a beautiful second story of your dreams, but it's not going to be built until you have the foundation, and a solid foundation with enough building materials left over to be able to build that second story. So,
Right.
yeah, it's so true. And that was probably one of the biggest ahas for me. I didn't realize, getting up close and personal here, that you were supposed to go to the bathroom and have a bowel movement more than once a week. And I had constipation my entire life. So, looking at fertility and the health of the body from a holistic perspective and a nutritional therapist perspective is, constipation is a major sign of poor digestion. So is diarrhea or alternating constipation diarrhea. And there are many, many other signs as well. But for me, that's what I dealt with my whole life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then I started learning this. And I'm like, wow, I've had impaired digestion for 30 years. No wonder, I wasn't breaking down and absorbing and getting the most out of my nutrients to be able to fully support my body, let alone another body. So
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's such an important point that your body is always talking to you. It is always telling you what's working well and what's not working well. It's just our job to listen and pay attention and know what those signs mean, so we can get the right support to have our optimal functioning.
Absolutely. And you just hit the nail on the head. And that's knowing what those signs are and learning to listen to your body. Your body gives you so much information every day. It's knowing what that information is and how to listen to it and how to read it. So, and for women that are out there thinking, like I used to think, that my body doesn't work for me, why isn't my body working? Here's the honest truth: is your body is doing its absolute very best for you. It wants to support you. It wants to do its absolute best for you, and it is doing its absolute best for you with the nutrients and the materials that it has.
I love that. I feel like we need to reiterate that, because it's so powerful that your body is always trying to do its very best. It's just doing the best it can with what it has to work with. And that is something that you as the listener can change and impact based on what you choose to put in your body and the support that you get to help your body use those nutrients in the best way possible. I love that so much.
Yeah, and it's so important. And for the listeners out there, you have so much power. You're not helpless by any means. You have so much control and so much power in the functionality of your body. And it all starts with what you put in your body, even what you put on your body, but also, making sure there are very simple changes you can make in even how you eat that will greatly improve your digestion and getting the most out of these nutrients. Because again, you can have the best diet in the world, but if you don't have the best digestion, you're not going to be able to utilize hardly any of those nutrients that you're putting in.
So I love what you're saying, and this is fantastic. But I'm thinking about the listener who is listening to us chatting and listening to what you're saying, thinking, well, that's nice. This is great. And sure, I can try to eat healthier. But how do I know that it's going to make that big of an impact on me in particular? So what do you say to those women or those couples who get it cognitively, but are still skeptical that how can it be so easy to impact so greatly my fertility?
So let me ask the listener this. Have them just wherever you are. I mean, if you're driving, don't do this and maybe come back and do this a little bit later. But if you're at home, if you're at your desk, wherever you are, take a moment to scan your body right now. Close your eyes if you can and just kind of go inside and, take notes. So ask yourself, how do your joints feel? How are your energy levels? Do you have energy to last throughout the day? Or do you find that you're reaching for coffee or something to perk you up, maybe around 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? Or, how's your mental clarity? Do you get frustrated easily? Do you get stressed out easily? How is your sleep? So you can take all of these into consideration. And these are all clues if you have any issues with maintaining really good energy throughout the day, maintaining optimism throughout the day, if you have issues with being able to go to sleep and stay asleep, if you have issues with bloating or feeling tired after you eat, or maybe you ate a huge meal, and if you're feeling full but still peckish when you should be full, but you still feel like there's something missing. These are just all very common signs and symptoms that there's imbalances in your body. So if you're listening to this right now and you're saying, yeah, gosh, I kind of do have that, or, if someone, if I get stuck at a red light, it just makes me so angry and I don't know why, because it's something really small. Or every time I eat, I feel like I need to have something more, like it just wasn't enough. These are all very, very common signs and symptoms. And every single one of my clients notices a huge improvement in how they feel within the first week of working together. And it's because we address these common issues. So if you're listening and you have 1, 2, 3, or all of the signs and symptoms I just listed, and those are just a few signs and symptoms, by the way, but they are very common ones that a lot of people experience. You can, first of all, I'm just going to give the readers a couple things to try. So first of all, make sure in the morning that you have a protein-rich breakfast within an hour of waking up. So go for a hard-boiled egg or an egg scramble. Eat the whole egg, by the way, not just the egg whites, because the egg yolk actually has most of your nutrition in it. Some sort of protein-rich breakfast. Eat that within an hour of waking, even if you don't have an appetite in the morning. Reach for something small like a hard-boiled egg. And I guarantee you're going to feel like you have a lot more energy and probably even more clarity of thought throughout the day. And you're not going to be reaching for that coffee or that pastry at 11 o'clock, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That is such great advice. And I can even speak to that personally to say that it really, really works. I've always had protein for breakfast, but I've really upped it recently over the last couple years. And I see such a tremendous difference in terms of my ability to focus and get things done and just not feel that slump around 10:30, 11 o'clock that I used to. It makes such a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that slump that you get, that's a classic sign of hormone imbalance. And more importantly, like more clinically, I should say, adrenals being impacted and being maybe fatigued. There's several different levels of adrenal fatigue, but that is the underlying layer for a lot of hormonal imbalances, is those adrenals being overworked.
Yeah, totally. Which is something I work on with my clients too all the time. It's just so pervasive how much they affect so much of your health.
Yeah. It's actually a very large part of my practice is I
Yeah.
work with the nutrition and the digestion, but then really also supporting the adrenals. That's a huge
Right,
part.
which you can do really well through nutrition and
Oh,
diet. There's
completely.
so much you can do to support them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do like
Yeah.
I do a I call it a healthy hormone kind of a reset diet. And for a couple of weeks, it's just a short-term thing with my customers, and that's basically an adrenal reset. It literally presses the reset button on
Yeah.
your hormone balance. And the thing is for listeners out there who again might be skeptical, I promise you, if you spend a week doing even one day, you'll notice a difference. But a week doing just the protein rich breakfast, you will notice a difference in how you feel. And that, my friends, is how you know that your body's being supported because you're going to feel better and you're going to notice a difference.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with every single one of my clients that I work with is they feel so much better when we're working together and they know um, that they're really transforming and supporting their body because they feel better in ways they didn't even realize they could feel
Exactly.
better. So,
Yep. And that's when the true shining light comes from, right? Is, oh my God, I don't just feel better in the ways that I wanted to. It's I feel completely better. I feel better and I just feel good again, which
yeah.
is fantastic. And you want to feel like that when you're about to start trying for a baby. You want to be in a good place in your body, mentally, physically, so that you're ready to open your life for this new little life that you're trying to create.
That is so incredibly true. And a couple that I just finished working with, and she's just about into her second trimester, which is so exciting. But they had fertility struggles for a couple of years and miscarriage, and I worked with both the husband and the wife, and I always loved hearing the reports from the husband because a lot of times the men aren't in with women that I work with. Their partner isn't as open or willing to go through the changes or to participate. But so I always love it when I get to work with both parties. But
Me too.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so much. It's so much fun, and just the awareness when people. I mean, I'm sure you see it too when people get those aha moments and they're feeling so much better and they're excited. I mean, it's so much fun
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
work with
totally.
that.
So you suggested a protein-rich breakfast for couples who are trying to conceive. Do you have a couple other? I mean, I know nutrition, diet, all those suggestions are very personalized based on your particular health, but do you have a couple other suggestions for couples on what they can do immediately, just as soon as they're done listening to this episode?
Absolutely. First and foremost, um, you've got to make sure you're hydrated. And coffee and tea and soda and alcohol they dehydrate you. So a real simple formula to make sure you're drinking enough water is take your body weight and divide it in two. That is how many ounces of water you should be drinking a day at a minimum for maintaining hydration. So, if you weigh 150 pounds, that would be 75 ounces of water. So, starting with that, and if you're one of those drink coffee all day long persons, I really recommend spend 2 to 3 weeks, wean yourself down to just keeping it to about 12 ounces of coffee a day and really making sure that you're keeping yourself hydrated. And here's a trick with hydration because I do talk with people a lot that say, I drink water all day long and I still see signs of dehydration in them, is to take some sea salt, like a pink Himalayan or a Selgri or a Celtic sea salt, and put a couple pinches in your water. And that's going to like unlock your cells so you can actually absorb the water you're drinking. So you're not just going to pee it all out
I love
and
that.
drink that throughout the day. You will also with this and the protein rich breakfast, you're going to feel like a new person, I promise you.
That's a really great recommendation because you're right. Like sometimes there are people who are drinking constantly and just feel like, I still feel so thirsty all the time. What am I doing? So I love that little trick that you just shared.
Yes, and another thing too is cap it off at 100 ounces of water a day. So I talked to one of my clients I was just working with when we started. She was drinking about 160 ounces of water. She was about 5'4" and about 130 pounds and was drinking way too much water. So everything was really diluted. So it's really finding that sweet spot for
Mm.
you. So half your body weight in ounces up to 100 ounces of water a day. So I want to give the listeners some tips on how to improve their digestion, because I've talked a lot about, making sure you're getting the nutrients out of your food. So one of the simplest, in theory, steps, but hardest to implement for a lot of my clients is to sit down to eat and chew every bite of food 30 times.
I remember growing up with my mom telling me that.
Yeah.
It's an old adage, but there's actual medical benefit to it.
If you think about, modern society right now, we're rushed, we're constantly stressed, and we have to, fight traffic to get to work or to get to our next appointment. And a lot of times we're eating in the car, or we're eating really, really quick so we can get to our next thing. And so, you're like maybe wolfing down a hamburger, so to say, and taking like two or three bites each time. So just to get your meal in. But I promise you, if you take 2 or 3 bites chewed very thoroughly, you're going to get so much more out of that meal than eating the whole thing. And then being in a rush, because if you wolf something down, chances are you're going to feel bloated, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel heavy, you're going to feel lethargic.
And you don't realize that you're full because you ate it so fast, so you keep eating thinking you're still hungry.
Absolutely. But if you take, just 2 or 3 bites, if you're crunched on time, and chew each bite really thoroughly, you're going to feel energized, you're going to feel satiated, you're going to feel really good and like ready and empowered and ready to go take on the rest of the day. So that's something really, really huge. And if you're a listener and you're thinking, gosh, I already do take my time eating, I eat really slow, I'm always the last one to finish. Another thing you can do to improve your digestion so that you can in turn improve your fertility is to take a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar before you eat. You could do it during your meal as well, but for best results, about 10 minutes before you eat. And just take a couple, I just kind of use the cap on the apple cider vinegar bottle and just take a couple capfuls. And that's going to start the process of, it stimulates the production of your gastric juices. So
do you do that before every time you eat, like all meals, all snacks?
I would, yeah, because you're going to be improving your digestion.
Great.
So anytime you're going to be eating, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of what you're putting in your body, right? So that is just a simple trick. Most people have apple cider vinegar in their cupboard already. So that's something that, I can easily offer out to everybody because it's usually on hand and it's really, really affordable. Right. You can go buy a big bottle of apple cider vinegar for $5.
Yeah, it's so easy to find. I love that. I really love that. So for those of you who are listening, I hope that this has inspired you to see it really doesn't take a tremendous overhaul to start seeing effects. I mean, from what Lindsay has shared, it really can start tomorrow morning when you eat a protein-rich breakfast, and you're already going to start to see an impact. When you're going through fertility treatment, or you're facing infertility, or you're just having trouble conceiving, or you're just ready to start trying to conceive for the first time, wherever you are in that fertility journey, receiving proper nutrition and helping your body take in those nutrients is so, so important. And I hope you've seen just how simple it can be to get that started. So Lindsay, I mean, I could talk to you for hours and hours about this. I mean, we just have so much we could cover. But what are your final words of hope for couples who are trying to conceive?
I really hope that everyone listening, if they take anything away from this, it's that you have the largest impact on your fertility that comes from you. So if you're looking at fertility treatments and maybe you're on Clomid or you're preparing for an IUI or IVF, know that there is so much that you can do. I would encourage everyone to allow themselves about 12 weeks of doing this. So if you're starting to think about fertility treatments, allow yourself 12 weeks, because making these changes, they're shown in studies. There are so many studies that show that this will greatly improve your egg quality, it'll improve sperm quality, and 12 weeks of preconception care improves fertility up to 89%.
Wow.
So it's massive.
That's
And when you
mind-blowing.
look at, yeah, it really, it truly is. And when you look at an 80 to 90% failure rate for IUI or a 50 to 85% failure rate for IVF, if you do this ahead of time, chances are high you might not need that, but everyone's different. Some people do need it. The chances of your fertility treatment sticking on the first go again, if you do have to go down that route, the chances of it sticking are 89% of a success rate. So that's massive. And there are so many studies to show this. So again, you absolutely have control. It's not helpless. You have so much power. So I really hope you take that to heart. And I would absolutely love to offer anyone that's listening a free just fertility fast track conversation where I can help you map out exactly what needs to
I
be done
love
for
that. Where
you.
can they find you to schedule that?
So they can very simply go to onlinefertilitycoach.com/book, and that will take you right to my schedule. And we'll just have about an hour-long conversation. We'll really go into your history, what's been going on with you, and help you map out a custom roadmap so you can transform your body, really take control, and help you unlock the key to your fertility, because you absolutely can.
Fantastic. I love this. Thank you so much for being here today, Lindsay. I am so excited about everything that you shared, and I just appreciate you so much for being here on the episode today.
It's been such an honor. Thank you so much for having me here. I've had such a blast. I could talk about this all day long. So
Thank you so much for joining me here today. I had such a blast introducing you to Lindsay. I had such a blast chatting with her, and I hope you enjoyed this episode too. And if you want to know more about how to have a healthy pregnancy once you do get pregnant, please feel free to schedule a consultation. You can visit my website at parijatdeshpande.com. And I would love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Handles for both are Parijat Desh, ParijatDesh. You really are not helpless during your family building journey. And you're not helpless during your pregnancy either. I know infertility can make you feel that way, but by monitoring and managing what you put into your body and how your body is able to handle all of those nutrients, you will increase your chances of seeing that positive pregnancy test that you have been dreaming of for so long.